All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the second session of the day for gCON for Google Apps for Education. We led off the day with a great presentation from Juan DeLuca, who talked to us about Google Classroom. If you missed that presentation, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. It's there, the entire recording, so go ahead and check it out there. But today we have, or this afternoon, we have another great presentation from Kevin Brookhauser. He is a Google certified teacher and Google certified trainer, while also teaching digital citizenship and computer science at the York School in Monterey, California. So we're really excited to have him here. He's also a Guru contributor, so if you want to see some of his videos, you can check all of them out at theguru.com. And his session today is going to show you how you can leverage Google tools to streamline the writing and grading process in your classroom. So before I kick it over to Kevin, I just wanted to say if you have any questions for him, please submit them through the Q&A app on the right-hand side of your screen in the Hangout on Air. We're planning for about a 30-minute presentation, so hopefully we'll be able to get to some of your questions during that. And if we have time afterwards, Kevin might be able to answer some of them as well. But I would say make sure that your question hasn't already been asked, and if it has been asked, please +1 the question in the Q&A app. That way we know exactly what are the priority items for the questions. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Kevin, who's going to go ahead and get started. So Kevin, thanks a lot for joining us, and take it away.
Thanks, Andrew. So thanks for everyone who's here. I'm really excited to be a part of this conference. Looks like we've got some great turnout. And I'll give you a little bit of my background. So in addition to what Andrew already mentioned, I've been a English teacher for about 15 years. So I've spent a lot of time working with students through the writing process. And I got to say, I love teaching the craft of writing. And I think it's one of the most meaningful and important work that we do in schools in general. There's a lot of jobs that are going to get outsourced in the world through technology, but I don't think writing is one of them. I think all students, all citizens need to learn how to write effectively, and I don't think our job as writing instructors is going away anytime soon, and I think that's a very good thing. That said, like I said, I love teaching the craft of writing, but there are components of teaching writing that I find frustrating or tedious, and for those, I've come up with a lot of different tricks using Google Apps in the classroom to diminish some of the frustrating components of teaching writing. And I've got a lot of resources on this page. I'm going to share my screen right here. Let's see, here we go, share. I've got resources on this page, and you could open up a new tab or just bookmark this page right here, kevinbrookhauser.com/drive. I've got links, and I've got this slideshow here, and I also have some really great videos that you can use, including the videos that I've produced for Google Guru. But I'm going to work my way through some of these slides, but I'm also going to jump out and get into some of these links. So let's see here. You guys are seeing, Andrew, are you seeing my slide drive through the writing process?
Yes,
okay.
We're seeing that.
Perfect. All right, so if you want to follow me, by the way, you can do so using the, I'm on Twitter, I'm at Brookhauser, and then also on Google+, I'm +sign Kevin Brookhauser. So I thought I'd go through the writing process using the metaphor of martial arts language. And my career or my history as a writing instructor, I can see as this progression from being a blue belt, a beginner at teaching writing, especially using these digital tools, to becoming a brown belt, and then my aspirations to become a black belt. So let's talk about the writing process in general. So the first thing that we do is introduce a topic. Now, as a blue belt, when I was a beginner, I would do this. So basically, the Macbeth essay is due in 1 week. And then what would I do after I make that assignment? What would I do as a teacher? Well, there's not much I could do. Maybe I'll catch a good movie and wait for my students to work on their assignments. As a brown belt, though, the process changes a little bit, and this is with the help of using Google for Education. I can say once again the Macbeth essay is due in 1 week, but instead of waiting that entire week for students to submit their assignment, I actually have my students submit their assignment the day I assign it. Now, of course, that assignment isn't finished, but they actually turn that assignment into me in the form of a Google Doc on the day I assign it. So I have everyone get out their devices, and I have them create a document, and I have them share that document with me. Now, I have a very precise naming convention when I'm using Google Docs, and I always begin, I organize the naming of the documents based upon how my grade book is organized. And the way my grade book is organized is first by period or section number. So you can see here the name of the document begins with a number. That's really important because then when I have the long list of those documents in my Drive file, I can sort by period number or section number. And then its last name, first initial, and then the end of the name is the name of the assignment. And that's not the name of the essay or the document that they're writing. It's not the title of the document, it's the title of the assignment. And that's important to me. So you can see here it's Macbeth Essay 2013 or 2014. And that becomes important when you want to look for files using the search engine, which is an incredibly powerful search engine built into Google Drive. So this may not be your exact naming convention, but it's the one that's worked for me, and I know it's worked for a lot of other writing instructors out there. And then I have them share that document with me. A lot of us have a rule that if it's not shared, it's not turned in and it's not graded. So we walk them through that process to make sure that those documents get shared. So that's kind of as the blue belt. The black belt is using this tool called Doctopus. Doctopus is an add-on, and I've linked some videos here on how to use Doctopus, and I also have several videos on Google Guru on also how to use Doctopus. Now, many of you, I hope, got to see Juan's presentation on Google Classroom, and Juan is one of my best friends out there, and his presentation on Classroom. Classroom is an amazing tool, especially for those who are just starting to dip their toes into technology or don't want to geek out with technology. But I do encourage you to check out Doctopus if you want to take it to the next level. So Doctopus is like Google Classroom on steroids, because with Doctopus you can customize the names of these documents that get pushed out to your students. You can customize it in any way, and you can also tweak the sharing preferences exactly the way you want so that your student is the editor and you are the owner, and that other students are actually commenters. I love this feature. You can set an assignment so that other students are commenters automatically on each other's documents, and that's really powerful for peer editing. Now, I don't have the ability to explain exactly how Doctopus works in this type of a session. I've worked with Doctopus, and I've taught many teachers how to use Doctopus, and I found that the very best way to learn how Doctopus works is to find 2 or 3 other teachers who really want to figure this out and are willing to commit maybe an hour or 2 to really experimenting with the tool, and get together in a room and go through the tutorials and the videos that I've included on that page, kevinbrookhauser.com/drive, and really geek out with it, because there are lots and lots of functionality, and I need to give a plug to my friend Andrew Stillman, who is the mastermind behind Doctopus, and he gives this tool away for free for teachers. If you can, look up Andrew Stillman on Twitter and Google+, and give him some serious +1s, because he's amazing. Okay, so let's go into the drafting phase of the writing process. So in the blue belt version, what are you doing during the drafting phase? Well, I recommend a good game while your students are drafting. Maybe you might want to play a little Candy Crush, because in the traditional way of assigning papers, there's not much that you as the teacher can do while the students are writing. You're just kind of playing a waiting game. But with Google Docs, you know, and here's that horrible stack of papers that you end up getting at the end of the drafting phase. But with Google Docs, is in the brown belt phase, you've got this list of documents during the drafting phase that you can jump in at any period of time and support your students throughout the entire writing process. This is valuable on so many levels. One of them is, let's say the assignment is due on Monday, and you jump in on Johnny's project, and you see that he has a big white blank screen. Hopefully you noticed that before the day it was due. But if you if you get to that Sunday night and you see that the project is blank, and then the next morning you either have a shoddy paper or a beautiful paper, both of those should cause some concern, because if it's shoddy, you know why it's shoddy, because they waited until the last minute to write it. Or if it's beautiful and it just appeared in the last minute of its due, which, by the way, you can also check using the revision history. You might want to check that out to see if there are any sort of plagiarism issues. Now, one of the things that I require of all my students using Google Apps is I actually require that they that they do their drafting in Google Docs. Some students have requested that they type it up in Microsoft Word and then paste that document into the document. And I simply do not allow my students to do that. I am the dictator of my class, and I'm not ashamed of being that. But I don't do that simply to be dictatorial or draconian, but I require that my students do the drafting in the document first so that I can support them through that entire writing process. But the other one has more of a pedagogical point to it. Using the revision history not only allows me to see the process, the student's writing process, but it allows them to see the process themselves. I think we spend a lot of time focusing on the final product of the papers, but I would encourage teachers to make the reflective piece of a writing as important as the writing itself. And what do I mean by that? I'm increasingly asking my students to spend a lot of time writing about their process of writing after the assignment has been turned in. So really getting them to reflect on their process. How did they go about tackling this essay assignment, and what did they learn through the process, and what was their timeline, to get them to be really aware of their learning process. And so I asked them to do a lot of meta writing projects where they're writing about writing, and with the revision history, because the revision history tracks the entire history of a document, you've got basically a time machine of that entire writing process. And so I have my students go back into the revision history and reflect upon their project using that. So drafting in the black belt phase, one tool that I want to share with you with regard to writing assignments is a template that I've created, and it's called the essay machine. So I'm going to hop out of this presentation and go back to my documents or my website here that has these resources. And I'm going to click right below my slides. I'm going to click this link called the Essay Machine, and that's going to launch a document that is shared so that anyone with the link can view this document. So what I recommend that you do, if you find that this tool is useful, if you simply click File, Make a Copy, and I'm going to call this Kevin's copy of the Essay Machine, Kevin's Guru, copy of the Essay Machine. And you can do this as well so that you have your own editable version of this document. So what is the Essay Machine? Well, it's a tool that I use to help my students learn how to tackle the 5-paragraph essay. Now, I know the 5-paragraph essay is not the most popular among the most progressive writing instructors. And to be honest, for me, I am tired of reading 5-paragraph essays. But what I like about the 5-paragraph essay is that it's really useful for students who don't yet know how to draft a well-organized short essay. And I found that with my 10th graders, there's a large percentage of my 10th graders who still do not know how to write a basic 5-paragraph essay. So I've created this template using a table to really walk them through the process. I used to hand out a sheet that instructed them on how to write it, but what I like about this is the instructions are right next to where the sentences for their essay go. So at the very top of this document, you can see that there's a box here for their title, and this is where they should actually be writing in the title of their essay. So, you know, fear and destruction in Shakespeare's Macbeth. So it's just and this just follows those instructions. And then down here is a box for them to create their hook sentence. And my instructions are over here on the left. Open with a sentence that will capture the reader's attention. Consider a startling statement or a surprising fact. However, this sentence should have relevance to your thesis statement. So they could type in a sentence right here, and then a couple focusing sentences that bring them right to the thesis statement. And for formal writing assignments, I have very specific criteria of how I want the thesis statement drafted. And then they jump over to the body paragraph. And right here, they can type in the first sentence for their topic sentence. This is your body's paragraph's thesis statement. Like the thesis statement, it should make a claim that others could oppose. So, I've had some critics who say this strips all the creativity out of writing. Yeah, maybe it does in a lot of ways. But what it does for my students who struggle with essay writing, or for a lot of students who still think that writing an essay is just mysterious, this takes that mystery out of it, and it allows them to focus on defending their thesis. Defending, by the way, with evidence. How many of you have had students who submit papers without any textual evidence? Well, they would have to actually defy the instructions right here. Here's the examples and textual evidence in order to forget to submit textual evidence or to fail to do that. So here you see body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, and down below conclusion. So and then once they have all those sentences written, the other thing that's great about this is it defeats the blank page syndrome when students just stare at a blank page and don't know where to start. This tells them exactly what to be doing throughout that entire process. My experience, papers are dramatically better when I ask my students to use the essay machine. Now, eventually, as they learn to work through this, they learn to let go of this tool and even let go of the what we often consider the tired trope of the 5-paragraph essay. But this is what I consider learning to crawl before my students learn to walk, and so many of my students do not yet know how to crawl. So that's the essay machine. Let's go back to my slides. They're over here.
Hey, Kevin, can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely, anytime.
So we don't have, I just want to let everyone know that to please submit your questions for Kevin while we're doing the presentation. It can be about writing, it can be about Google Apps for Education, it can be about Doctopus, whatever. Kevin's an expert on a lot of these tools and processes, so feel free to ask your questions, and if you're having an issue viewing or submitting questions, just try reloading it and you should be able to submit your questions. So I just want to make sure we get some of those in before we end up signing off for Kevin's session. So Kevin, if you want to go ahead and go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, I've got a few minutes after the 11:30 mark to address questions, but it's also a lot of fun to tackle the questions during the session. I can see that a lot of people have gotten in by being over here in that my copy of the essay machine. I see all of these anonymous animals in that document right there. So that's encouraging that a lot of people have gotten in. If you are having trouble getting to my site, which is again kevinbrookhauser.com/drive, and that site is that link, or at least the title is in the Q&A session. Just make sure for some reason I need to work on my DNS settings and get rid of the if you put www.kevinbrookhauser.com/drive, it doesn't work. All right, so let's move on through these slides, and yeah, Andrew, feel free to interrupt me if you see any questions that you think I can address during this session.
Yeah, will do. Okay,
and so then one of the things that I do with my students is have peer review day. And what traditionally that looked like was printing out 1 million pieces of paper and passing them around and have students work. But luckily we live in the modern era of computers. Now hopefully your computer lab doesn't look like this. In fact, I think we've kind of gotten rid of a lot of computer labs and students are just bringing their devices. But what's cool is during peer review day, I dedicate a specific day to reviewing, to having students read each other's documents and commenting using the comment feature in Google Docs. And that's useful for any number of obvious reasons. But one of the maybe not so obvious reasons that I got from my friend Catlin Tucker, who lives up up north of San Francisco, is that she uses peer review day as a way to truck through student documents herself. So she takes that day, and both she and I set a goal for ourselves during peer review day to get into every student's document during that class period and commenting on at least one paragraph of every student's document. That way, what we're doing is we're preloading the time that we would normally spend evaluating and providing feedback on student writing. This allows us to spend some class time doing that as well, and maybe we're spending a little less time in the evening reading student papers. So, and this is definitely much more possible now with using Google Drives. The other thing about the commenting feature is that it's really, it turns the whole process of commenting, it seems like it used to be a matter of, correcting student work. But with the comment feature that's threaded and you can reply to comments, it turns the whole process into more of a conversation about writing rather than just correction of writing, which I really love. Now, during peer review day, you'll see that my students will see that my face pops up on their screen sometimes, and initially that's a little startling, but my students end up learning that I'm in there and I'm there to support them. What I've started doing was putting, when I see errors, like common writing errors, instead of just correcting them right there in the document, I've started linking to websites that have videos and instruction on those errors, because I know that my students, if I found a comma splice and I just marked it as comma splice, I know that my students were not going, opening up their grammar book and looking up comma splice. So I actually include links to resources, and I've even created a website that has videos that I've created that any writing instructor can use, and that's grmr.me. It's this website, it's called Grammarme, and it's got a bunch of very short URLs that contain videos and quizzes and badges. So let's say I come across a problem of a student who does not who uses the past tense when referring to literature. So I'll give them this link right here, grmr.me/LPT, which stands for Literary Present Tense, which takes them to a video that they can watch. When discussing any work of art, writers must use the present tense, or, if you care, the literary present tense. This applies to all works of art. Hamlet fears the ghost of his father. The Mona Lisa smiles mysteriously. Kenny dies in each episode. So you can see, and this video goes into greater depth into the more complexity of how literary present tense works, and why sometimes you do need to use the past tense. And then there's quizzes at the bottom, Oedipus, that you can take, and as you get through the quizzes, if you If you get correct answers on the quizzes, you will earn a badge which you can, save to your portfolio or simply take a picture and show it off to your teacher, which is what I do. So have a look at Grammarly. That's available for any teacher, free to use. So let's see. The evaluating phase. Like I said, what I used to do is just use red ink on paper, which wasn't really. I don't know how much my students read the red ink on paper, but the advantage to it from the teacher's perspective is it's very fast to circle a word and write verb tense on a piece of paper. Whereas inserting a comment in a document can seem slow. And it was for me when I first started committing to using Google Docs, like just highlighting a sentence or a paragraph and then going over to insert, comment, and then writing my comments. Oops. And then clicking on comment. That process of moving my cursor around actually compounded the time it took for me to evaluate and to comment on student papers quite a bit. And in fact, I even just gave up on using this until, and here may be the most important thing you learn in this session, and that's the keyboard shortcut for inserting a comment. And if you're a writing instructor, you provide lots of comments, and the keyboard shortcut is Option-Command-M on a Mac. And I think it's Control-Alt-M on a PC or on a Chromebook. And then you just type in your comment, and then Control-Enter submits that comment. Learn those keyboard shortcuts. In fact, learn every keyboard shortcut that you use repetitively. You shouldn't memorize all keyboard shortcuts, but you definitely should memorize the ones that you use over and over again because it really speeds up your time. If you want to learn more keyboard shortcuts, you can go to the Help menu and then click on Keyboard Shortcuts, and this will show you lots of keyboard shortcuts. I just love keyboard shortcuts, and every keyboard shortcut you memorize, you earn a nerd badge in heaven. I can promise you that.
Hey, Kevin, while we're talking about comments, can you comment on your thoughts about the new suggested edits versus the traditional commenting and kind of when you can choose, because there's a huge difference between the two of them, and they definitely have different use cases.
Yeah. So comments are simply when you want to talk about a piece of writing or a word in there. It's kind of the meta conversation. This past summer, Google introduced this new feature that allows users to restrict their own editing level on a document that they have the right to edit. So by default, on any document that I have the right to edit, this one I have the right to edit because I own it. But if I click over here, oh, actually, I want to go over here because I don't want to mess up my main document. So if I go over here and click Suggesting, this restricts my editing privileges so that I can only comment on, I can still comment, like, here's a comment. But anytime I try to write in, I used to not be able to write in a document when I was only limited to commenting, but now when I write and I click out of there, you can see that my suggestions in the line of the text is highlighted in a color, and it's color coded, and the owner of the document can either accept or reject those suggestions. This is very similar to the track changes feature that we're probably used to in Microsoft Word. So what does that mean for you? I think for a lot of writing instructors, this is the killer app for revisions. When you're accepting a revision to a paper that's after it's already been submitted, what we want to know is if we're going to accept a revised paper, we want to know what revisions that student made. So what I'll do is I'll force that student to only submit changes as a suggester rather than an editor. And what that does is it highlights all those changes so I can see exactly what the student has done, and that'll help me evaluate how much editing that student has achieved in that draft. And the way to force somebody to be a suggester is to limit their editing privileges to can comment, and that basically forces them that they can only make suggested edits, and all of those edits are highlighted. Andrew, did you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, I think there are suggested edits give it's a really good way to visualize changes to a document that you never were able to do in the traditional doc.
Yeah, and Andrew, you're probably like me when collaborating with others on a document. One of the things that we used to do to express who was making what submission, we used to color code our text by saying, all right, I'm going to be orange and you be green, and so we would manually change the color of the text that we entered. And now with suggested edits, we could let Google do that automatically. So just turn off your editing privileges and just make yourself a suggester, and that will automatically highlight whatever contribution that you make to the document. So I want to tackle a couple of the questions that are in the Q&A. Particularly, there were a couple of questions about Doctopus versus Google Classroom.
Definitely. Kevin, can you switch off of the screen share if we're going to go through?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me to do that.
No problem.
Screen share is off, and now you see my handsome face. All right.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, let's see. Is Doctopus superfluous now that assignments can be added through Google Classroom? For some, it may be superfluous. If you're really only using some of the most basic features in Doctopus, then Classroom may work just fine for you. The thing is, though, Doctopus has so many more features. You can really dive in and tweak the sharing preferences exactly how you want. You can have it work with folders so that the folders are shared exactly the way you want. You can have students work in projects. So if you have students in groups of 4, with Doctopus you can have that one document get shared across those 4 or those groups of 4. The other main advantage that I want to pitch for Doctopus is Gubrick. So Doctopus has its own rubric feature built in that is super powerful. In Classroom, you're restricted to simply providing some paragraph, some narrative feedback, and a number, and that's the score. A lot of us educators are really big on rubrics, and so that's what I love about Gubrick is it's a add-on, or it's actually an app that's built into Doctopus, and when you download that, then you can apply a rubric, and the score in that rubric is actually automatically pasted into the bottom of that document. Super, super powerful, and definitely worth geeking out on, but it is you certainly don't need to be a computer programmer or anything to use Doctopus, but you do need to have some tolerance for just kind of geeking out a little bit and diving into those little switches. And I got to tell you, it's just a lot of fun to do that. And so I would encourage any teacher to take on that mindset of, hey, let's play with this tool and let's really see what it can do.
And the really cool thing about Doctopus now is that it used to just be a Google Apps script, which is really intimidating for a lot of teachers that have never messed around with Google Apps script, but they moved it over to be a Google add-on, which is a lot more friendly view and a lot less intimidating. So if you're ever scared of using Google Apps script or didn't think that it was something you could handle, add-ons are definitely a lot more manageable way to go.
And you also may find that Google Classroom is that you are open to geeking out and you love the features in Doctopus, but you also love the simplicity of Classroom. You can actually apply the add-on, the Classroom add-on, within the framework of Google Classroom. So they're actually increasingly working closer and closer together. Again, I highly recommend that you follow Andrew Stillman, and he's got instructions on how those things can work together. There was a question, Megan asked, do you think that your ability to track student progress with the paper diminishes the frequency of plagiarism? I would say yes, simply provided the fact that they are writing in the document. So when I'm looking at the revision, if I suspect that there is some plagiarism, the first thing I do now is go into the revision history of the document, and the clue that there might be plagiarism is if it goes from 4:43 and there's one paragraph, and then at 4:44 p.m. there's 8 beautifully constructed paragraphs. Something fishy is going on there, because no one's writing 4 beautiful paragraphs in 1 minute. So at least it gives teachers a little closer and more precise view of how that writing got written. If you do dive into the revision history and you make sure that you turn on more detailed revisions, you get a minute-by-minute view of how that document was created. So yeah, absolutely. Let's see, are there any other questions? Let's see, do you think about some of the impression that Google bundled the functionality of documents? Yeah, still value, yeah. All right, so let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, as far as evaluating the brown belt, one of the things that I've done is if I'm not using the Doctopus rubric, if you don't go in and use Gubrick, what I use is Google Forms. A lot of people think of Forms as a tool to use to collect data from other people, which it certainly is. But you can also think of Forms as a way to organize your own data. So I created this form that has, and I'm using the grid feature in Google Forms, and I've created several different main topics, and then underneath those are criteria for which I can give a rating from 1 to 5. And so for this rubric itself, there are 20 different criteria that get a rating from 1 to 5. And so what I do, my process is I've got the paper on my computer that I'm reading through and commenting on. And then on my tablet, I've got this form up. So I can kind of, oh wait, you guys don't see my screen, I'm sorry. Let me show you the screen. And anyway, here's what the form looks like. But I can just pull out my tablet and pull up this form, and I kind of tap my way through the writing process. And at the bottom of the form is a place where I can submit comments. And this is what the final spreadsheet looks like after I've graded a bunch of papers using Google Forms. There is a long list of numbers, and then I created a formula that simply adds up those numbers, and then a place for comments. Now, how do I get those numbers to students? Get this data to students? Well, what I used to do, and this is a little embarrassing, but it's just fine if you end up going this route. What I used to do is just print out the spreadsheet, and then this gets even more embarrassing. Is I would cut those rows into strips and just hand students strips of their feedback, and that works just fine. And if you find that you end up doing that, I'd say run with it. I'm a big fan of the paperless classroom, but I don't think we should go overboard. I think using some paper in the classroom is just fine. But now with Google Classroom and with Doctopus, there are easier ways to distribute feedback to students. And so here's what Gubrick looks like in Doctopus, and it allows you to create your own custom rubrics, and those get pasted into the bottom of the screen. And then finally, with publishing, in the Blue Belt version, this is where papers used to get published into the recycling bin. But as a Brown Belt, we can, using Google Docs, we can publish papers for the outside world. So I like to think of Google Docs as the new refrigerator. So you can share documents with parents and grandparents, and hopefully for people outside of the community, and get students' work to actually get published, and that becomes much more motivating. One of the things I recommend in the Black Belt version for publishing is have students use Google Sites to create a digital portfolio. And I have my students collect all their work in their Google site, and so that they can see their progression as a writer, not only throughout the entire year, but throughout their entire academic career. So that's, let me just conclude by 10 sentences that Google teachers never hear. I posted this a couple of years ago, kind of went viral for a while, but So here's some sentences. If you use Google Docs as a writing instructor, you don't hear anymore, "I forgot to save my work." "I finished my paper, but it's on my computer at home." I heard that so many times before I started using Google Docs. "My printer is broken." "I can't work on the presentation because I don't have that expensive presentation software at home." Well, guess what? This is free. "My paper's on a thumb drive and I can't find it." How many of you heard, "I tried to email this document myself so I could print it out at school, but it's not in my inbox"? All of these problems that we used to have are rendered moot thanks to Google Drive. If my student forgets his computer, not a problem. I can pull out my computer and say, "Hey, bring it up right here." Or, you don't even. The thing is, if it was shared at the beginning of the assignment, you don't have that issue at all because I've had access to that document the entire time. So that's my pitch for Google Drive in the classroom. I'm open to any other questions, and have lots of other ideas as well.
Let's see. Yeah, feel free to pick out any that you want to tackle, Kevin. There seems an issue here with suggested edits. Problem if the comments disappear or the suggested edits disappear, and then you have no record of your comments. There's no way around that, obviously, but do you have any suggestions there?
Well, what about the revision history?
Do comments show up in revision history?
If you're the owner of the document, you should have a record of the comments. Now, the chat. There is a chat feature in Google Docs, and that is not recorded. I wonder if that's the confusion, but I'm pretty sure, and I hope someone chimes in if they've found something else. Yeah, right here it says, "The problem is that students can reject all your comments, and you no longer have a record of your comments." That is only, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, that is if the student is the owner of the document. But you may want to, if you use Doctopus, you can set it so that the teacher is the owner of the document, and they certainly can reject a comment, but I think you can go back and see that record of your comments.
Great. Kevin, can you flip that screen share off again? Thanks.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
All right. I'm sure people don't want to look at me the entire time. They'd rather look at you.
Yeah. Let's see, I did see a comment some here. Oh yeah, you said forms as a grid. Yes, 2 computers. I highly recommend the Nexus 7. I love this little tablet. It costs $200, and it's really great for using forms when you've got that next to your computer and you just kind of tap your way through that form. Let's see. What about other apps that work with Google Docs? Yeah, I just heard about Kaizena, or I didn't even know how to pronounce that. Kaizena. I haven't had a chance to test it out, but I did take a look at it briefly, and it looks like it has a lot of potential and allows. I think it allows teachers to submit voice comments. Very cool stuff. There's always new stuff coming out. And that's the exciting thing about using this, is that there's always something new to learn. Well, great. So I just again want to thank you very much for this. And if you want to find more resources, I'm hoping to submit more videos to Google Guru.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Yeah, it was great having you on. And Kevin mentioned it a couple times during his presentation, but if you didn't get a chance to see it, he's got a lot of great resources at his website, kevinbrookhauser.com/drive. There's videos there. And I think, Kevin, did you say that the copy of Essay Machine was there?
Yep. Okay. The copy of the Essay Machine is there. It's right below the slides.
Cool. So if any of you want to try that out and make a copy and use it in your own classroom, you can just go to kevinbrookhauser.com/drive.
Great.
Kevin, unless there's anything else you wanted to go over, I think we can sign off for this session.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, so this is the second session of gCON. We have one more for Google Apps admins in about an hour and 15 minutes. So If you are a Google Apps admin, I definitely urge you to stick around for that final session of the day. But if not, it was great having all of you here, and we look forward to doing this again very soon. So thanks again, and see you later.